Will and Becci, Jessica, it's so great to have you guys share with us. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to share with us this morning. And you know, recently we've been doing these series in the life of our church called Hope in the Dark, and we just thought it would be great to hear from some people who've kind of got some lived experience maybe of what that looks like. You've got beautiful Jessica with us. How old is she now?
She's 11 months yesterday, so she'll be a year and a month.
So she's almost ready to tell this story herself.
Almost.
Right?
She'll try to, but you might not understand.
But can you tell us a bit about the journey? When did you guys start trying for a baby?
So it was back in about 2014, I believe. So it's been a while since we started trying before we actually saw this bundle of joy come about. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey for us.
Could you tell us a bit about what that journey's been like?
So we, as most couples do, think that when you try for a baby, it happens, within sort of a short period of time. But we found that we were waiting longer and longer and longer. And within that time as well, we saw a lot of our friends sort of have babies relatively easily, which was, wonderful for them. But again, just a reminder for us that we weren't having the baby that, we hoped for, that we longed for. And then I think it took us maybe 8 months or so. 8 months or so to fall pregnant, but unfortunately that one didn't work out for us. And again, it was another painful experience, wasn't it? So we were kind of just waiting for this baby to come along. But didn't. So shortly after we lost that pregnancy, God placed a verse on my heart, which was hope. Hold on to the hope. I can't remember it now. Sorry. Do you remember?
I think it was Hebrews 10:23, because I checked it up last night to make sure I knew what it was. Which is, let us hold on to the hope that we profess, for he who promised is faithful. Hold unswervingly onto the hope that we profess. And it was kind of that one word sort of in there kind of stuck out to us, hold unswervingly, which actually kind of reminded us that sometimes hope can be hard to hold on to, that sometimes things come along that make it hard to do that. But yeah, it's kind of holding on to it unswervingly and sort of knowing that God does promise things, and we can hold on to that even if we don't see the answer straight away.
One of the things that strikes me is that, it's a long road between 2014 and 2019. And actually, you guys were here in church. You've been passionately serving, diligently there. We'll be well accustomed to seeing you up in the corner, Will, and all that you do as well, Becci. But how was it being in church in the midst of all of that? Like, what was that like?
To be honest, it was kind of mixed. So sometimes, when you're feeling, like I say, hopeless, you don't want to walk through the door, but actually when you do come through the door, this is a place where you did feel at home, and you did feel hope, and you did feel that God was, and it was another reminder that God was here. Thanks. And also as well, I like to pray a lot and ask God a lot, give me some guidance, some direction in where we're going, I think maybe it's because I'm an anxious person, but remind me that you are there. And each time I'd pray that before the message would start, be it in church here, be it at Hillsong Conference, or even visiting speakers, every single time they'd speak about Abraham and Sarah and about how they had faith and they held on. And I was like, okay, God, you are telling us this. You are saying to us we are going to have a baby of our own one day. And then in 2017, at the end of 2017, we fell pregnant again, and we thought, this is it, this is our miracle baby, it's going to happen for us. But sadly, we lost that pregnancy again as well. So it was after that, it was really tough for us, wasn't it? We really sort of questioned what was going on, but then we remembered God said, hold unswervingly to the hope. And even though that was 18 months prior, God had said that to us, and we were like, okay, if God says this, we know that he's bigger than situations and, and obstacles that we overcome, but actually we're going to focus on that, and we're going to believe in that. And then shortly after that, we made a decision, didn't we? We're like, this is it. Well, regardless of what happens, whatever God's plan is, we're going to just trust him. And then after that, we decided to pursue IVF, and the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with us. They thought, well, you should be able to have babies, and you should be able to keep a pregnancy. So we went through the process, and the consultant said to us, well, realistically, you've only got about 30% chance of success. The area where we live in, we only get one funded cycle on the NHS. We went through the process. We only had one viable embryo at it. After that process went through, and actually, God's bigger than statistics. God's bigger than everything that science says, because this is proof. She's here, she's healthy, she's alive, and she's with us, and it's more than we could have ever hoped for. And it's just, it shows that we had, even though our timing was back then, we wanted our baby back then, we know that this is the right timing for us, and actually it's worked out perfectly. I mean, 2 of our best friends have had baby girls at the same time, so they can grow up together. In the waiting period, I could do a qualification that meant I've got bigger and better job opportunities. So yeah, at the time it was a hideous experience to go through, and not one that I'd wish on anyone, but God did stand there with us and spoke to us and said, I am with you, hold on swervingly to this hope. I am faithful, and this is the proof. That's exactly what he is, what he says he is, basically.
I guess you've talked about a few things that you did that were really helpful, that actually helped you through the midst of all of that. Is there any other advice that you give for anyone who feels like they're in the middle of the dark place, that they're not at the end of the story, but they're in the middle of the story?
I think just going back to that verse, just hold on to that hope. Know that God does keep his promises. I think Becci mentioned, like, we'd hear kind of stories about, or we'd hear like the story of Abraham and Sarah every time we were asking God about it, and you'd hear other stories of other people who'd sort of waited for their children, and God had come through. It had taken some time. It was a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes hearing those stories, because you hear that God is faithful, but you also hear that there is that time of waiting. And I think it's kind of hard when you're in that situation to hold on to it sometimes, and to believe that what God has said is going to happen is going to happen. But yeah, kind of looking back now, you can see that God does keep his promises. So yeah, I think don't kind of disengage from God. Don't hold back. Like we were saying, it was helpful being in church because we did hear those stories. So kind of staying connected and staying. He is good, yeah. Continuing looking to God, even in the hard situation, even when you don't feel like it, kind of sort of really progressing with that.
That's powerful. Becci, yeah.
Can I just add to that, sorry, very quickly? Something that struck with me as well was that remembering that someone else's story isn't your story. So if you're feeling and looking around and thinking, well, they've had this, they've had that opportunity, or it didn't work out for them, it didn't work out for these people, just bear in mind that your story's different, and God's got a different plan for you and a different purpose for you. So therefore, you just got to focus on him, and he will be there through the midst of everything, regardless of whatever.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing with us this morning. It's been amazing to hear your story. Thank you for having the courage to share it with us. Can we have a round of applause for Will and Becci? And for little Jessica, who, from the way she was going for the mic, she's either going to be a singer or a preacher one day, I reckon. So maybe both.